This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. This is your host, Phil McKinney. Welcome. We are still here in the mobile studio here at Consumer Electronics Show here in Las Vegas, looking at interesting technologies, interesting services, capabilities, the latest gadget, the latest TVs. We have a guest here in the mobile studio here at CES. So Marco, first of all, welcome to Killer Innovations.
Thank you, Phil. It's a great pleasure to be here.
And I saw Marco pitch at an event that actually my team was hosting here in Las Vegas on Monday afternoon.
Amazing event with Cable Labs. It was terrific.
Yeah, so we're down at the Four Seasons. So we pick a small set of companies, and we put them in front of decision makers to give them an opportunity to have that concerted, focused one-on-one. So I wanted to invite Marco to come on to the show here. So it's not just limited to the people in the room, but that actually you have an opportunity for my listeners to hear more about your company. But actually, you've got a pretty interesting background. You've been an entrepreneur for
life.
For life, yeah. Well, it's one of those. It's amazing how many guests on the show. You know, it started with the lemonade stands, and returning bottles to the grocery store for the deposits, all kinds of things. But you started at a pretty young age.
Yes, I did. The first company I was involved was bringing internet to my small hometown in Brazil. So I was 13 years old. The internet was only in a few major cities in the country. And I would every night have to wait until midnight when the phone cost was lower to connect and call São Paulo to be able to connect and get data. And then we were like, no, this can't be it. So I joined the father of a friend of mine, and we started to bring internet to the city, and it's still there. It's a pretty big cable and internet company now in Brazil. Not pretty big, but regionally. Yeah. But I'm not involved anymore. And after that, I've lived in China, where I developed other companies. I went back to Brazil, and I'm here in LA.
Well, the question, did your parents look at you and go, what do we have here? How do we deal with this 13-year-old off, focusing on running businesses?
Yeah, I was always passionate about computers and entrepreneurship and everything, and they were like, "Are you crazy?"
You go to college, get a good job, settle down.
And my mom is a doctor, and she was like, "Oh, why don't you become a doctor?" I was like, "No, that's the last thing I would do." It's amazing what doctors do, but I always liked technology. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, to go beyond, go to other countries, see other cultures. I was always, I was from a small city, so you can imagine you're really excited about going out, about seeing that there's more than just that.
Right.
And I've seen a lot since then.
So you were living in Brazil, you went to China. Why China?
Well, I came here first for my high school. I went to Shreveport, Louisiana. It was an amazing experience.
Shreveport, Louisiana for your high school?
Yes, that was crazy.
Okay.
But I had a lot of fun. It was incredible. I had an amazing host family that took me traveling all over the country. And then I went back to Brazil. I started working in product development, and I was 17 years old. And from 17 to 20, I was already going to China, looking for products, and the products that I would select and develop, they were sold by big distribution companies in the country. So when I was 18, I was already handling over $2-3 million of imports and distribution. But I was in university. I was bored. my university is local. I was studying international trade at that time, and most of my teachers couldn't even speak English. So I was like, yeah, I'm wasting my time here. So I decided to drop it and decided to go to China. So
you dropped out of school?
I dropped out of school and
went to China.
Directly to China. 20
Where at
years
China?
old, Shanghai.
Okay.
So I got to Shanghai. I couldn't speak a word of Chinese. And it's not like today that we have smartphones to get us everywhere and everything. And I didn't know anybody else. So like my first week, I was just, I could not go beyond my block because I was afraid I couldn't come back because I didn't know how to say the name of the street where I lived. And then I started to learn the tips, and it was amazing because when I got to China, imagine, China, you could not find like deodorant. You could not find dental floss. It was still like Shanghai was, Pudong was not what it is today.
Yeah.
It was very, very different. And like, there was only like one place that sold pizza. You couldn't find cheese. So it's very different than what it is today. And it was incredible to see the growth and what happened from, I stayed there for almost 10 years. So everything, how China evolved and how technology evolved, how business evolved, how they learned to, create new factories, new companies, bring technology. So it's pretty amazing.
So I'm assuming you got pretty good with your Chinese then.
It's in the end, like they say. I can speak enough, but not like I can discuss politics.
Yeah.
But I can negotiate. I can bargain price down, which is.
So you went from China then back to Brazil?
So yeah, I stayed in China for a while where I developed a few different companies, and then Brazil was booming. It was and.
What was the time frame for this?
That was 2010,
okay,
2011.
Yep.
Actually, more 2011. And Brazil was doing really well, and US was still recovering, starting to grow, but there was such a big opportunity there, and with my family and everything there, I said, okay, time to go back home. I knew that I had to, my time in China was it was done. It was about time for me to see new things and find new opportunities. So I took the company. I literally moved the company from China to Brazil. We kept an office in Shantou in the south of China.
Yep.
And we established a new office in Brazil, and we started to distribute our products. At that time, my main business was a toy company where we're doing toys with voice commands, with augmented reality. I was very early into augmented reality, but I knew that deep inside, I knew that I was not going to stay for long. And as I was developing the company, I was approached by this amazing nonprofit organization called Endeavor. You can check out it's endeavor.org. They're based in New York, and they have already 30 offices around the world where they look for high-impact entrepreneurs, and they help these entrepreneurs to grow, to expand, to network, to build relationships. And this Endeavor was built by really amazing people like Edgar Bronfman Jr., Reid Hoffman, and the founder, which is Linda, that she's amazing, she's incredible. And so they came to me, and their model is to mostly to connect you with amazing mentors. So imagine a toy company, I was developing games and things. The first people they connected me with Strauss Zelnick from Rockstar Take-Two Entertainment. So I was like, wow. And then they connected me to Disney, to a bunch of amazing Amazon and other amazing companies. And I came to the conclusion that, I had to come to America. And I was excited about it because I had lived here, but I had never lived in California, and technology was always a part of me. I don't know why it took me so long to come to California. So I was able to get investment from Mauro, who was the founder of Microsoft in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And that enabled me to come to the US, and I went to Silicon Valley. I was incubated by Zynga, so that got me to get to know more Silicon Valley.
Perfect. And then you actually ended up in LA now, right? And we'll talk more a little bit more of that when we come back from this commercial break, so don't go anywhere. We're going to continue our conversations with Marco, learning more about him, the problem that their company's trying to solve, and more about the company itself. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're here talking with Marco with regards to his background and his company. What was the problem you were trying to solve? What you mean? You kind of gave us the whole your history of bouncing around. You end up in California, Silicon Valley. You ultimately ended up in LA. You were doing toys that had voice command, but you were trying to take it to another level. What was the problem you were trying to solve?
So when I got here, I was trying to bring my toys, and the idea was I was going to distribute toys and continue doing smart toys. But as I got into San Francisco and during the incubation at Zynga, I started to realize that what we were really good at and what I really wanted to do was to reinvent storytelling. On a way, how do we take content beyond screens? Because we keep consuming content just on a flat screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make sense, especially now with IoT, where you can connect the entire house into this storytelling,
right,
where you can connect toys, the lights, even the thermostat could be interesting. Imagine a horror movie, the temperature gets colder, you get a phone call, your lights. So I start to think how to go beyond that, how to build this, how to make content and storytelling integrate your entire home, your car, your toys, and everything else. And I started to research technologies that could enable me to do that. And I was invited by Universal to work with them in a few projects in LA. I started helping other companies and also my own developing these kinds of interactions. But there was always a barrier. I could never get a product or something to interact with YouTube or to interact with streaming or even radio, because my technology was based only in ultrasound, and which I developed first by myself, and it was great. It could enable the tablet to communicate with the toy. It could enable simple interactions and even like through the radio sometimes. But it really did not allow this complete interaction in being able to work with YouTube, Netflix.
And why is that? Why couldn't it work with the YouTube or Netflix?
Because when there's video compression for for streaming, they cut the ultrasound layers to be able to compress the files.
So that's really part of the compressing. They say,
exactly,
as a human, you can't hear it anyways, so therefore it must be no value. I'm going to cut it out.
Exactly. And because of that, so it put a big barrier for the development of this concept. And I started to look for, where can I find something that could interact with YouTube?
Now there's other companies out there that are doing sound-based interactions, whether it's, small packet, bursty data, that type of thing.
They're mostly doing that with ultrasound.
Okay.
So it was
because it's like I'm in the room, I don't have the barrier of trying to embed it in a media that's kind of an over-the-top delivery mechanism, and that's where this compression and chopping it off. So,
but I found this amazing company in UK called Chirp, and they had gone beyond the ultrasound, and they were able to develop different technologies that enable this interaction with whatever, with YouTube, with broadcasting on TV, with radio, I can use their technology with any media format. Anywhere there is audio, I can make something interact with it.
But if it's not in the ultrasound band, I hear the sound then.
You hear the sound, so you can send dynamic data through sounds that you can hear, which is something like an R2D2 sound.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat even.
Yeah.
But they also have technologies that enable you to pre-program interactions based on existing sounds. So let's say you put your soundtrack or a song that you have. You can make or even for example, with Netflix, we launched Beat Bugs, which was the TV show with Beatles songs.
Mm-hmm.
We developed a toy that could understand the sounds from the TV series and interact with that. Mm-hmm. And it was at Target, did really well.
So in that case, you're actually embedding the instructions into the soundtrack audio that's already there, so you don't even notice it.
You don't notice it,
right?
Yes. And the best part is, because we use the sound to transmit data, we don't need to have a connection in the product which is receiving.
That it just listens.
Doesn't need
it just needs a microphone.
Yes. So it makes it safe for kids. It makes it safe, even as since everything is happening locally. So even to build connections within your home, to interact home IoT devices, it makes them safer, because you cannot just go in online and hack these devices.
Right, because that's a good point, right? Because we've all seen some of the dolls where the kids talk to the dolls, and then their voice actually gets recorded and sent to a cloud for processing. Versus you do it, everything's local. Everything is local.
Yeah. And the technology is not only, what really excited me was that the technology was not only for toys. I could use it for a bunch of other uses.
How long had Chirp been around at that point?
Well, Chirp is already 7 years old. They were like the first to enter this array, like this market. And although there are some competitors around, nowadays they still have the most reliable technology. They are already bringing
how big was the team at Chirp when you first engaged with them?
They were about 11, 12 people.
Okay, in the UK.
Yeah, it's they took their time to develop the technology.
Right.
They came out of UCL in London, and they really focused, and they only started to have a commercial development really and going to market and everything about a year and a half ago.
So they put 8-9 years of research into it.
They're 7 years into it.
Okay, 7, so year. They 5 to 6.
Yeah, 5 to 6 years making it work.
Well, not many organizations do that, right? Because it's like I'm going to get it, I got to get it to market, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they started testing. They had the MVP, which was an app that they did for consumers. But after they launched that app, they saw that the company really had to be, the best was to be B2B. And to enable everybody else to use this amazing technology to exchange data.
Good. When we come back, we're going to take another quick commercial break. Let's get into Chirp. I want to hear a little bit more because you interacted with them because you were trying to do something. You found them. So when we come back from the commercial break, let's pick that up and what's your interaction with Chirp today? What happened after you started engaging with them? Be right back.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're here with Marco talking about Chirp. We were just at the end where you had
My encounter with
your encounter with them because you had solved or was attempting to create a technology using ultrasound, and when you went out and looked, you found Chirp. What happened next? What was the whole path there?
I fell in love with the technology and the team and the whole concept, and I started to help them to do, to come to America like I did.
Right.
So I helped them on business development. I helped them to launch the company here, to bring some amazing partners and to distribute their technology, not only in the US, but all over the Americas. So it's a very interesting partnership because the technology is so new. Like, although we've used sound with modems in the beginning of internet,
Yeah, the famous AOL tones,
right?
right?
People forgot about it.
Right.
Nobody really, we started going into other directions in terms of connections and connectivity, and sound was forgotten. And sound is the most basic form of communication.
Right.
So now, after they developed the technology, and now that we start showing to all of the big companies and everybody, nobody knew. So I still get people from major CTOs from major companies that come to them and say, "Have you heard of data over sound? Data over what?" So it's we still have a lot to teach the public about the amazing features and use cases that you can do with sound. And it's really broad.
Yeah, so you were already in LA when you found them. Then you helped them, come to the United States. Are they still based in the UK, or did they pick up and move?
No, the company will continue being headquartered in UK.
Okay.
They have amazing support from UCL and so it doesn't make sense to move headquarters here, but they really want to grow their presence in the country. We are, partnering with many new companies here in the country. The first one was Activision, that we did the Skylanders toys, and then we did Beat Bugs, but now we're also getting into other areas like payments. You can send payments to each other just using sound.
Right.
So that started, and we're partnering with a few companies for that. You can use it for ticketing. So instead of imagine it's a sonic barcode.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I'm sitting here with printed out tickets for an event later on where everyone said you must bring the printed ticket. I'm like,
that's absurd.
It's 2018. Right? I got to bring a printed ticket to an event? Come on.
Right.
Come on.
And many times also, so like most people rely on printed QR or QR on your phone. But when you do that, I've seen people in airports trying to scan their tickets, but their screens are broken. And then
screens are broken, or they've got them dimmed, or it's late at night and it's got the orange glow.
So you always see there's a friction there in the movement, trying to get the reader in the right position. And with Chirp, you can just send a sound, like your ticket would have a sound just like it has a barcode, and then you enable. You can already identify and go in without having to scan or anything.
So what's your relationship with Chirp today?
So I started as their chief strategist, and now I'm more into business development, helping them to prepare for their next rounds, helping them to develop their relationship with some of the big companies I've worked here.
Right.
So it's a nice partnership.
Right. So, I mean, you use the word partnership. Are you still doing your other businesses in LA?
Yes,
or?
Immersive Play is my main business.
Right.
We're launching new products very soon, and people will be very surprised with what's to come. Immersive Play has Snow and Stella, which is our own IP. The app was featured by Apple as one of the apps we love, and we got over 300,000 downloads this year. But nobody knows what's to come after that. That was just the first the first stage. And now the kinds of interactions that we're going to build around toys and around content using Chirp, and it will grow a lot.
So this is a little bit of a different model, right? Because it's not like you're acquiring Chirp. Chirp's a separate company.
Yes.
You have your business. You have your Immersive Play. Immersive Play is building products using Chirp. At the same time, you're in effect, chief development officer for Chirp, right? It's kind of an interesting.
So when I started talking to Chirp, our idea is when you look at companies like Pixar. So you have Pixar. Also, they have RenderMan, which enables. So RenderMan enables.
If you're not familiar, RenderMan is the animation tool developed by Pixar to how they actually do their workflow in wireframing and animation, sequencing and animation. Exactly. But it's a tool they also sell to third parties.
Exactly.
Right.
So I needed a tool that would enable my storytelling to interact with everything, to go beyond the screen.
Right.
And so Chirp is that tool. Chirp is, and for Immersive Play to really succeed, I need Chirp to succeed.
Oh.
So I can be more homes and build more interactions with that.
That's interesting because it really is skin in the game.
Yeah.
Because you've committed to Chirp, but if Chirp doesn't survive and grow and continue to invest in the technology, then your investment of using Chirp in your products then ends up failing at some point.
But also, it's interesting because when one of the reasons that I liked and I wanted to join Chirp is that during this past 3-4 years, as I joined Endeavor, my network grew so much. And only 5% of my network are really related to entertainment and toys.
Right.
So that gave me an opportunity to use the rest of my network to bring other, to do business with other companies that I likely would not do business. So it's been quite interesting. I started to develop partnerships for Chirp in other industries, and that is going really well.
Excellent. But I am intrigued by the fact that it is such a different model of, whether you're a traditional mentor model or a typical coaching model or a contract BD, but it's not. But it's different because it really is. I think this is really interesting. It's a different model.
Yeah, we have a commercial arrangement.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, you have to have that.
I want to get a. I know that Chirp will succeed, so I want to be a part of that.
Right.
And I help them help me.
Right. That's it. That is. So, Immersive Play. Do you have outside investors? How are you funded?
Yeah, we're invested by the founder of Microsoft in Brazil.
Right. Yeah.
And
that was when you were still in Brazil.
That helped me
to come to the U.S.
to come here.
Right.
We also have a few people that did convertible notes and things, and we are preparing later on for it's the technology and the interaction is really visionary, and our homes are not that connected yet.
Yeah.
So I have to go slowly with what I'm doing. But
and you got to find people who get the vision.
Yeah, I found enough. Like it's the traction and the vision. People get it. But if I launch now, most of the things, it's the infrastructure in people's home is not ready for that.
Right.
So the experience, the timing is not ready. It would be too early.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, I'm preparing and developing the content and developing these amazing new interactions that you're going to see. I'm giving people time to get Alexas in their home, to get Googles in their home. Because all of that is a part of the interactions that I'm, crafting.
Great. We're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, I want you to share, given all your entrepreneurial experience, if you had an opportunity to go back and give yourself advice, what would be that advice? And we'll do that in the next segment. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. As we took the break right just before the commercial, I asked for you to think about, given that you started at 13 and went to China and back to Brazil and high school and Louisiana and then Silicon Valley and now LA, you've had a lot of experience. And a number of our listeners are at that stage where they may have an idea, but, it's always the unknown that they're concerned about. What advice would you give our listeners, given all the experiences that you've collected over all your businesses and activities?
Well, the advice is that we should always look for mentors. Mentorship is what helps you to not make the same mistakes that other people already did. Mm-hmm. So when I started, I had nobody to go to. Imagine, I was in China. Even the people that I knew in the business, the new business, they could not help me on how to set up a company in China.
Yeah.
So I knew nobody, and I had to figure it out by my own. How to register a company, how to get investment, how to launch, how to manage. And it's a burden when you try to do it on your own.
Right.
So building a network of mentors that you can trust, that they share your vision, and they don't need to be investors on your company. Sometimes it's even better if you don't expect them to invest, because they will give you the most honest feedback. Mm-hmm. But getting a good set of mentors in different areas that you feel that you need to develop is really important. And today I do mentoring, every week, and not mentoring other people, but getting mentorings as well from my mentors at Endeavor.
Well, it's interesting. We had a guest on probably a couple of weeks ago, and one of the pieces of advice they gave at the end of their interview was also they agree on the mentor, because it's critical, right? Because you can learn and collect all that, but at the same time, be careful.
Yes.
Because if you have a lot of mentors, they may be giving you contradictory information, and if you try to do everything a mentor tells you to do, you end up thrashing.
Yes, you have to be there is the right way of mentoring and the wrong way of mentoring. So I usually go to mentors to for areas that I have no idea, where I don't have the confidence to make a decision. But sometimes we just want a mentor to say that we're going the right direction, and you don't need that. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to know your path. You need to know your vision, where you want to go and what you want to do. And you go to mentors to see on their experience what happened, how did it work for them, what mistakes did they make that you can take an advantage of that or learn from that. But it's not like ask them, what should I do? Right. It's more like, tell me your story. How did it work for you? What did you do that was right or wrong? And from there, let me take my own conclusions and figure out what is best for me to do.
Yeah, it's a little bit of trust your gut.
Yes.
Right? Because, as you build up that experience, you kind of like, that sounds right. I have enough confidence. I think this is the path I'm really going to go. It is, and the interesting point, though, as you made was, it is about having that self-confidence.
Yes.
Don't be dependent on your mentor to be your cheerleader. You have to self-motivate.
The first thing that I think about entrepreneurs is your ability to, say what you want and be confident on where you want to go. Because when you are an entrepreneur, everybody will tell you that you're crazy.
So if you get discouraged easy, not the job for you.
When I told people that I was going to live in China, I heard so many times that I was crazy, and every time people would tell me I was crazy, I would get even more excited. And there is a book that I recommend from Linda from Endeavor, which says crazy is a compliment. How to zig when everybody zags.
Yes.
And that's entrepreneurship.
Yep.
If everybody start telling that you're crazy, you might have something there. But learn, to do your MVPs. Learn to, don't rush it in.
Right.
Test, go build more. Test, go build more.
Well, you were at the event on Monday. We had Eric Reeson,
which was amazing.
So we brought Eric in to talk. If you're not familiar, he did the Lean Startup, and now he's got his new book, which Eric's going to be mad at me because I just drew a complete blank. But basically, how to do lean inside enterprises.
Yes.
How to bring it into an organization. It's not just for startups, but it's a great strategy for business. But yeah. Eric was great on Monday night, sharing kind of his, the thought processes of how do you have to really think about it, both as an entrepreneur, but also as a leader inside of an organization. So I'll actually have a link to both of Eric's books in the show notes, because then I'll remember it as soon as we get done with the show. So, hey, if people want to follow you and keep up with what you're working on, both on Chirp and also your other company, where's the best place for them to follow you at?
So they should go to chirp.io to check Chirp, and my website is implay.com, implay.com, okay. And I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to to connect, and thank you so much.
Great, thank you. We'll have all the links up at the show notes, so check out the show notes. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here and check out the show. I encourage you to subscribe. You can find us now over on the iHeartRadio app. We're also now on Spotify. We're also obviously on iTunes and Google Play and all the other locations. And if you subscribe, that way then you get each of the new shows as they're produced. We're getting ready, coming up in March for our start of our season number 14. Yes, we've been doing this for 14 years. And we have every show made available free of charge all the way back to episode number 1. Just go over to killerinnovations.com. If you have an idea, suggestion, or a guest who you think should be on the show, drop me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com. I would greatly appreciate your ideas. If you've got a question that you would like to have answered on the show, we do that periodically, about once a quarter. I'll just take questions from the listeners, and we just have an interaction here at the show and look to answer those. I'd also encourage you to check out the innovators.community. It is an online community on Slack that allows innovators to come together from a variety of industries and expertise. And it really is kind of a peer organization to get that support. So when the people do tell you you're crazy, you got people who are standing behind you, helping you.
I'll definitely join it.
Push forward. So check that out, the innovators.community. With that, have a great week. Take those ideas, bring them to the world, change people's lives. Bye-bye.